What's up, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Evening Alpha. I am your host, Todd. Man, I am very excited tonight. We have somebody, I have somebody that I'm going to introduce you to that inspires me. We met at NFT NYC last year, and we had I think the first time we met, we had an hour conversation. And then I got bored with everyone else and came back. We had another conversation. I love these guys. I love what they're doing, and I cannot wait to introduce you to them. Before we jump in, though, a little bit of housekeeping. Want to let you know we have some big news in the adult fantasy universe. This weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we have a new mint. We have Origin Comic #1. This is the first appearance of D Void. If you're new to the universe and you're like, oh, these guys are doing NFTs and it's a comic book. Yes, not only is it a comic book, let me tell you what's so special about this thing. We didn't just write a comic book. We didn't just draw a comic book. We didn't just make an NFT that's a comic book. This comic is actually the very first thing to come out of adult fantasy that is 100% community driven. So you guys know we launched last December. We minted it out. Ever since then, if you've seen our town halls, we call them peep shows. If you've seen our peep shows, we have been dropping stuff every month. We have just been relentless. Our peep show updates now take over an hour because of all the stuff that we've been dropping and coming up with, and partners and everything. This is the very first thing that we have created with the community. This is community driven. We have a show on Thursday nights called Lore Games. And everyone that shows up, the Lore Games basically is our chance to create the 30,000-foot view of adult fantasy. And this comic is a direct result of those hangouts. So everyone that was coming out, you guys know, we've started to talk about D Void a little bit. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if she had her own Origin comic, or she could do this or that? We had some ideas. We came back with a couple of questions for you guys, about a dozen questions. You guys answered those questions. We helped us fill in the blanks from the sort of the general plot that you guys came up with. And our guy, Zachary Arbella, who's a fantastic writer. He's written 13 novels in the fantasy space. He wrote a script for us, and we created it. We drew it. Avery Butterworth drew it, who's also a member of the community. This is community driven. And so this weekend, it goes live, it goes on sale. And the best part is, if you were here for the Ashcan comic launch, our mini comic Ashcan launch, you get to burn that Ashcan and get the comic for free. So set the comics on fire. It's okay. It only hurt me a little bit. It'll hurt me a little bit. I'm going to admit it will hurt, but I'm willing to have my pain is your gain. So just come out over the weekend, burn some comics, get yourself an Origin comic, have a lot of fun. Yeah, we're going to be promoting this pretty hard all week. We really want to get you guys involved in it, and we really want to get your support. It means the world to us. We couldn't do this without you. So this weekend, the Origin comic launches. Also, and Melissa would kill me if I didn't mention this, Melissa, our senior developer, inside of the Discord, she has created a channel. If you want to help test the service, because we're actually doing the tests for burning mechanics and everything, if you want to help her debug and test, please hop into Discord, look for the Dev Lab channel. Feel free to jump in, help her out. She has some steps in there that'll walk you through it, so you can help her test out on our staging site. We would love for you to show up. Yeah, we are very excited, and we can't wait. So I definitely want to give you guys a heartfelt thank you for making this happen. It really wouldn't happen without you guys. So we love you, and yeah, thank you so much. And with that, I am very excited tonight. You can always tell I got a big smile on my face. I am super proud to introduce Alex Phelan from Merch Proof and from Merchandise.
Hey everyone. Hey Todd. Thanks so much for having me.
Alex, what's up, brother? How are you?
I'm so good. I'm just actually thinking about burning books being a fun thing now. You made it sound, you're the first person that made burning books sound like such a fun activity. So.
Yeah, when the economy's crap and everything is going to hell, just toss the books into a fire. If world history has taught us one thing, it's that burning books into a giant bonfire is always right.
It'll get you through the crypto winter.
Yeah, why not? Keep your hands warm, burn some NFTs. So please tell us, what is Merch Proof and what is Merchandise?
Yeah, so at its core, it is a new ecosystem for producing for essentially selling and manufacturing and shipping branded merch products, which for us is primarily apparel. So some people would call it decorated apparel. Some people would call it branded apparel or branded clothing. But it's essentially anything that any type of textile that can be dyed, printed, stitched, modified somehow to be a wearable piece of clothing for a human being. So that's essentially our space at a core. And my entry into this space was very unique from the standpoint that it really didn't have anything to do with kind of a lot of the traditional cogs that go into the giant wheel of making clothing, from cotton farming all the way to screen printing to making garments and dyeing garments and all those things. My entry into the space was with a company called Teespring, which actually rebranded as Spring a couple years ago. They actually just got acquired a few days ago, so big shout out to my friends over at Spring and people that I know who are still there. Really great company, doing really cool things. We started in this space, in that space, as kind of like a platform that was like Kickstarter for t-shirts, and it was basically a crowd-funded t-shirt app that allowed you to design a t-shirt in a very user-friendly way. That t-shirt would then get a website URL, teespring.com/myshirt. And we had a minimum that was the same as the minimum that we had with our screen printing partner at the time.
Wasn't it like 25?
So actually, I think when we started, I think it was around 50. It was something like, it might have even been 80. It was something that now seems like a pretty big batch, but at the time, when you go talk to people doing screen printing or embroidery or any of these like batch manufacturing processes for garments, doing 50 of something at once is a very small order, because the bulk of this industry is driven by big brands producing huge long runs of things, typically in many different countries, all coming together to make one product over a very long lead time. And so the way that we were doing things was in shorter run, still with kind of those traditional pieces like screen printers and garment mills and garment distributors. But we were doing it in much smaller quantities in a much shorter lead time because we were pre-selling garments that didn't exist. And then after the campaign had ended, we would then, we were kind of under the gun to produce those garments and then individually ship them to buyers. So the part about like shorter runs was already like not very compatible with the traditional supply chain in that space. And then what really broke it was then having to break those down into individual e-commerce fulfillment orders. So think about like, a combination of like a very sophisticated screen printing operation combined with like an Amazon fulfillment center. That's really what we needed, and nothing like that really existed. So we had to kind of build all those pieces ourselves. And so as we, the big thing that we didn't really discover, I think it kind of discovered us at that time, was people creating groups on Facebook. So this is like 2011. Facebook groups and communities on Facebook that had a lot of likes. That was like the social media influencer of the time. And they realized, I love my dog and I love my cat and, I love guns and I hate guns or whatever.
I remember this. There was a big, because of my background in digital marketing, there was a big internet, like digital marketing push where basically what people were doing was they would serve ads to people named Mary or whatever, and then push them a shirt that said Marys are the best or whatever.
That's right.
This Mary ain't no virgin or whatever, like some kind of witty t-shirt directed at the person's name or Scorpio or whatever, a trait tied to their interest, because Facebook and Facebook advertising would allow you to pull interests. So they would just serve interest ads to interest-based people. and those people would buy them up.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. So that was like the second wave. So wave one was Facebook groups that already had big audiences, and there was no paid reach or anything like that that was limiting what you would post and then your audience would see. And then when Facebook ads came out, and now you have an advertising platform that's using the most valuable organic data in the world of all these people just sharing all these personal details about their life, which allows me to create t-shirts for every person named Todd on Facebook, right, or every person named Alex who was born in 1985 or whatever, and yeah, or every nurse who likes ice fishing. Right. Right. We had all these like weird combinations where we're like, oh, that's actually that's a good niche right there. Right. Like not a lot of other advertisers are trying to target nurses who like ice fishing, but if you're a nurse and you love ice fishing and you live in Minnesota, you might like buying that shirt that you saw in your news feed on Facebook more than just like a generic Harley Davidson shirt, right, or Billabong or Burley shirt.
All you need to do is, you don't need to do much to break even on that part, and then right, it's super targeted in a way that most people weren't used to. Like I've got one of my friends is a guy named Romel. That's not a common name, but I remember him talking about that back in the day. Like, yeah, I got a targeted ad with my name on a shirt. Like, it's not the kind of thing you would normally see, right?
Exactly.
So you were able to target really interesting things. So from Teespring, and I remember Teespring. Teespring was actually very important to me as an entrepreneur as well, because I remember those Inc. articles. I remember all that stuff. That was basically when I was in New York and coming up, right? Yep. And so what got you from Teespring to jump into NFTs?
Yeah,
because that's not
it's a crazy leap. But so it all started from this wanting to do things that are very different with decorated apparel than any of the traditional pieces we're doing, whether that's apparel brands like Nike and Adidas, or big promotional products plays like Disney, NFL, NBA. And kind of breaking all those molds and trying to create really unique products that have a deeper emotional connection to the buyer in a very small quantity in a very short amount of time. And with Teespring, we had this amazing vision, we had this amazing traction, but the technology around producing the technology around producing just one of something, especially this digital printing technology that we were using at that time, was not really capable of doing like big premium brand deals. So we weren't compatible with apparel brands like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. We weren't compatible with big brands doing big promo things like NFL, NBA. We tested those waters, and usually they would not work because of unit economics, or too many intermediaries involved. Or the quality or level of customization that we were able to provide. Mm-hmm. And so my mission after Teespring, sort of had to take a little bit of a step back from that vision, was to really go deep on the manufacturing technology side, specifically inkjet technology for textiles. So I spent the next few years, working with a group that was building one of the coolest digital printing pieces of technology in the space at the time, and still is to this day. This big $1 million printer that produces hundreds of shirts an hour. And that's when I got into like the actual molecular level of the technology around the chemistry and the workflow and the inkjet technology. And from there, from being kind of on the bleeding edge of what's possible with inkjet, along with other companies like Amazon and Ralph Lauren and Nike and those types of players, we started to see that, oh wow, this vision of being able to do really premium retail grade apparel on demand is actually going to be possible, and it's actually closer than we think. So it was a combination of being on that bleeding edge, and then also COVID happening in early 2020, which really obviously was a horrible tragedy for humanity. But there was a creative destruction element to it that decimated all these supply chains. And you read all the headlines about raw materials and
Yeah.
cotton, all this cotton stuck in like the Suez Canal and all this stuff, that was happening, that caused all these disruptions to people buying shirts at Walmart for Christmas and things like that. That's what caused us to start Merchandise, really. And Merchandise is a new way for brands to manage every aspect of their decorated apparel, whether it's a clothing brand. We work with a couple athleisure brands, and where that's their primary thing that they sell is clothing, or it's a kind of licensed promotional products play like NFL or NBA or Disney, or if it's like a brand using promotional products to promote some other product like an alcohol brand or Pepsi or cannabis brand. We just saw we knew that if we could control the e-commerce piece, all of the digital products, and then we could control the manufacturing and do the manufacturing in this very specific way that we know how, that we could create a very unique and great experience for brands and their customers around branded merch that would remove a lot of the supply chain constraints. And so that's how Merchandise got started, and we started working with apparel. We started proving that concept where we took over some apparel brands. We started working with large promotional products use cases. We started working with big sports teams and sports leagues. And so the reason we got into NFTs, and the whole reason that we met at NFT New York, was one of these, like, as I called them at the time, NFT brands, which is World of Women, one of the top 10 NFT collections worldwide, approached us for the same reason that lots of other big brands approach us. Hey, we have lots of merch potential. The supply chain's a mess. We would like to do lots of other colors. World of Women especially has really high color, beautiful NFTs that have lots of gradients and things. So they didn't want any limitations around, color, around compatibility with different garments. And that's ultimately the value proposition that has pulled most of the big brands in that we work with. And so it kind of started as we said, hey, we don't really understand this NFT space too much, but we understand brands and having their likeness be represented on physical products. So yeah, let's do something. And so we started getting into it, building out the spec for their merch store and what products we're going to do, and the different types of designs. And they asked us if we could token gate the store, and I said, what does that mean? and so then they explained to me, well, we only want the holders. We only want the holders of the NFTs to be able to buy the merch. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And we have a large engineering team that does not specialize in Web3 at the time. And so we brought in a couple Web3 developers. We built out this feature. And from there, we realized, wow, now we have like direct access to your collector's art. And it's high res art that we could do lots of interesting things with it, because Merchandise and Merch Proof is standing on the shoulders of 10 plus years of all this crazy stuff that we were doing with variable graphics and inkjet printing on textiles and pushing the limits of like what's possible with apparel production. And so we thought, we had this unique perspective, and we said, hey, wow, now that we have these pieces of art, we could use this for, you could have dynamic characters in different designs and different templates per product. And, a piece of apparel, like a wearable piece of clothing, is just in its raw form, is just a blank canvas for expression. And it also tapped into this, like, the learning. I think one of the big things we touched on at Teespring in the early days was creating brands, or like smaller brands, that have a much deeper emotional connection to a smaller group of people. And so, like, if I'm that nurse who likes ice fishing, right, and I have X amount of money that I spend on clothing per year, maybe before Teespring I was buying a Hurley shirt or a Billabong shirt or a whatever shirt, but then as soon as I see that shirt targeted to me, I immediately have a stronger emotional connection to it. And
secure connection. And I want to jump in. I want to say something, because you've said a few things, and I want, especially for people like my background, I have a crazy background. So beyond like marketing, I've got a production background, like deep production. So I've been in apparel. This is a whole stack of designer toys that we made years ago, like full, 3-inch vinyl that we manufactured in China. So we've done it all, a lot of it anyway. And one of the things, and I want to express how unique this is for people, because if people who haven't made their own shirts before, haven't made their own products before, the biggest problem this is me, so this is just anecdotal evidence, right? But I know from doing this for 20 plus years, I'm not the only one. I know that I'm not the only one, but anecdotal anyway. The one of the biggest problems that we've had over the years for production and creation is the fact that the minimums, you have a choice. You can do really, really high quality, highest quality you can get, but your minimums are going to be higher because it's basically mass production at a low scale. So to get actual toys made, like real toys by real designers, as I break it, all over the world, I think our minimums for that was like 5,000 toys or cases. I can't remember. Same thing with comics, right? Like, you want your comics done? Cool. We can do really perfect. It can look like the right paper, the right texture, the right cover, everything you want, but you're going to have minimums of 1,000, 1,500, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000, whatever it is. And the more you order, of course, the lower your cost. You can do that. The other side, and this has been something that's happening, it's not new, but I would say within the last decade probably, really is the print on demand movement, where hey, you can get that one comic made, but it's going to be on our paper, our way. You might not like the way the comic's folded or whatever, but you got your comic. It's professional looking enough. Or hey, you can get that t-shirt made or that hoodie made, but if you're printing a dark color on a dark shirt, it's going to look faded out, but you got the image on there. It's there. It might not look the way you thought it's going to look, right? Printing black on black, for an example. It might not look the way you want it to look, but it's there, and you didn't have to buy a minimums of 1,000 pieces or something. And so one of the things that drew me in like a fly to, I don't know, something, was when I saw you guys at NFT NYC, and you were in this massive booth, this giant booth in the middle of it. No, it was actually like.
It was in a hallway.
It was in a hallway at a coffee table with a rack of clothing, because that's what NFT NYC gives you. Which is another story for another time. But it was super high quality, bright, screaming bright colors. And for someone like me that's done this before, there were a lot of I don't want to say inside baseball, but I saw things that I couldn't wrap my head around. And I know, so for everyone listening on the podcast, I'm sorry. I'm actually going to show a shirt because I stole this from you guys. I asked permission and I begged for it, and you guys were cool enough to give it to me. So I don't know if you can see this. And I know on the podcast you can't see it, but what you're looking at right here is a merch proof shirt, the brightest colors you've ever seen. And on the back, you can see, like, look how bright that is. It's super bright. And there's a couple things that are crazy. So as I show the back of the shirt, you can see that there's a design that goes all the way down the back, and like in the little corner, there's a little cloud. That blew my mind, because as someone who's done this before, I couldn't figure out how you did that. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, well, I think it's I couldn't figure it out because that's not screen print. Right? I was like, well, it's got the color of screen print, but that's not screen print, because the screen print, the screen would have had to have been the size of the shirt.
Totally.
Which is not for, and you don't do a 1-of-1 that way. Like, that does not exist.
Right.
That's not a thing that exists. There are other things that we can talk about on the shirt that blew my mind as well, which we'll get to. But can you describe how that's possible, that you can get a screen print quality, bright, the brightest colors I've ever seen on a shirt, on your shirt, without having to do screen print colors? Like, what is this magic technology?
Yeah. So, the thing that's so great about screen print is that you can get, you're actually mixing ink in some cases. So if you mix ink the right way, you can mix kind of any color you want. You're using this ink that's basically pure pigment that if you turn it upside down, it won't move, right? It's like completely viscous. And then you're pushing that through a fine mesh screen with a squeegee. So you're essentially like saturating all of the garment with this pure pigment ink. And then that's getting cured with heat lamps. And then new layers of color are being put on top. So you get, especially when it's done right, you get a print that is good color, never comes off the shirt because it's basically like glue that's sticking on the shirt. And then, and especially if it was done right, you're not going to get the cracking and stuff. So, if your screen print shirts start to crack after a few washes, not a good sign. If it cracks after 100 washes or whatever, pretty good. But so screen print's really good for getting the right color in the right location on the right type of garment with the right team of experts that know how to do that. But you have to do it over a batch of shirts because you might spend $10 to $20 per screen just setting that screen up. And then, this design, for example, which this design actually has a gradient in it. So I wouldn't even be able to reproduce this 100% with screen printing. I'd have to modify the art to be halftones and 4-color process and all this stuff. But to do that, I would need probably at least 4 or 5 screens to really like reproduce this accurately. And that's anywhere from $40 to $80, And so for a single shirt, that doesn't make any sense. If I'm going to produce 1,000 of them, it works. And part of the problem is that you have so much of the retail space and the way that products are made and printed revolves around screen printing. And so the lead time expectations, the traditional retail cycle, it's all compatible with screen printing and particularly screen printing in huge batches overseas. The type of printing that all of these print-on-demand platforms use, which is the printing that I followed from almost its inception until a couple years ago, is called direct-to-garment printing. Yeah. And the way that works is you're essentially trying to print directly on the fabric with an inkjet print head, the same thing that's in your home printer, not a laser printer, but the home printer that's like, and it's like going back and forth and it takes forever. And if you're printing photographs and things like that, it takes a really long time because you're using a lot of ink and high resolution. So you're trying to take those same print heads and that same water-based ink, which, if you look at your inkjet printer ink, you can shake it in a bottle. It's made out of water primarily. It's not like concrete, like plastisol ink. If you turn it upside down, it's liquid. It's based in water. And so it has a tiny fraction of the amount of pigment that screen print ink has. So screen print's great for large boxes of color, solid colors, big blocks of colors. Not so good at fine details and photographs and things like that. Direct to garment, it can make photographs in high color look somewhat photorealistic, but the big problem is that the thing that you're printing on a garment is fundamentally not compatible with the thing that you're printing out of or the process chemical that's going in it, which is an inkjet print head with water-based ink. A garment is like this crazy unstable mess of fibers that came from whatever corner of the earth, dyes that are not done in any consistent way, stitching that's not done in any consistent way. So if you look at it under a microscope, it's a bunch of holes and fuzzy. It would be like if you looked at your lawn like under a microscope. Oh, this isn't really the best solid surface to print on. Whereas if you look at a sheet of paper or film, it's like perfect,
meant for it.
So it's designed to receive that ink. So there's this technology called direct transfer film, DTF. Don't Google it, okay? Make sure you include inkjet or something in there when you.
Oh, is it a keyword?
I'm going to get the intended results, but but so it essentially gives you the best of screen print and the best of DTG. So you're printing on, or the best of digital inkjet, I should say. Yeah. So you're printing on this film, and some people are doing it in cut sheets in this really sketchy kind of MacGyver way. But the basic, we have our own process that we're doing it with one of the leading manufacturers on the equipment side in the space. But the way that we're doing it is we print on a roll of film. It's a 4-foot wide roll of film. And then we're printing CMYK ink first, then white ink on top of it, with an inkjet print head. So, but it's printing on film, which it's designed to print on. So it's the clarity is perfect. There's not missing lines and all this stuff. Like, you can get a really nice print. And then there's this powdered adhesive, which is essentially like the adhesive component of plastisol ink, of screen printing ink, dehydrated into powder. And then that powder is applied over the wet ink, and it's agitated so that it kind of smooths over that wet ink. And then you have like, I'm a visual person, so I don't know the technical name of this, but one of those roller heat presses, I think it's called like a calendar press or something like that.
Yeah.
It gets fed into that, and heat activates the adhesive property. It basically cures the powder and the ink and all the layers together, so that once you have that, you can cut it and transfer it on anything. And people that if anyone knows anything about apparel manufacturing, you hear transfer and you're like, oh wait, is that like one of those iron-on things that I would see?
You think about a sticker or like,
total crap quality, and it's what most people are thinking. But transfers, there's lots of different types of transfers in the space. So screen printed transfers, for example, are very high quality, especially ones that come from the big producers in SoCal and Central America and things like that, where you can actually get a transfer, that would have a little print on it, and you heat press it for 5 seconds, and it's called a hot peel. So you press it and it peels right off. A lot of the things that you see at the Nike store, at the Adidas store, at Under Armour, Ralph Lauren, all these companies they've been using screen printed transfers for a long time. And all of these companies are now doing heavy R&D in this direct transfer film.
It makes total sense, right?
It's because
it's going to be cheaper, and they can do bigger quantity, and keep the quality high.
Exactly, and it allows you to do things. For example, like if you wanted to put a print here on the collar or over the seam of a pocket on the
which
hood,
is normally freaking hard.
Totally, because if you're trying to print. An inkjet print head is like a surgically precise tool. You're printing like you're printing 2800 DPI resolution in some cases, like finer resolution than most human eyeballs can detect. And so when you're printing on garments, a lot of that is like completely lost. And when you're printing on paper, in order to achieve that, you have to get within like 1 or 2 millimeters of the substrate. And so if you've got these inkjet print heads coming down to the fabric, it can't go over any seam, any wrinkle, any seam. You're gonna have a multi-$1,000 error. So it takes all the things that digital inkjet printing is really good at, like having fine detail and being able to print really high resolution and full color, but then gives you the adhesive properties of screen print, so it never washes out, never, you can scratch it, pull it, scrape it, whatever, and it's not going to come out. But then the flexibility of being able to put it anywhere you want on any fabric. And so that was the big breakthrough that we had over the last couple of years.
And I want to talk about that in a second. But first I want to jump into chat. I want to welcome everybody. Willie D, what's up? How are you, sir? Dusty LFG, KG, welcome. Regis, what's going on? Natasha, how are you? Welcome. Carrots is here. He says late, but I had to whip up some enchiladas for supper first.
Ooh, yummy.
That's understandable. KG says welcome, Alex, and World of Women is awesome.
Oh, thank you. We love World of Women. We agree.
Absolutely. And Willie D said, did someone say DTF? I don't even know what that means, and that's okay. I am okay with that.
Just Google it after the show.
I will Google it on my wife's computer so it screws up her.
There you go.
as any good husband would.
That's right.
So I want to, again, going back to the shirt, like, so one of the things, and I actually want to give you guys credit for something. So not just for the technology and obviously for the quality. Again, I'm showing it on the screen for those that are on the podcast. It's really incredible, super durable. The color's just screaming bright. But at the bottom, is a patch. And I know you guys, because I talked to you guys when you did it, you were like, yeah, we did this last night.
Yeah.
There's a patch at the bottom, and you're like, why is there a giant square patch at the bottom? Well, I'm gonna point to, and I don't know if you saw this, Alex, but there was a big, you might have, I'm sure you did. There was a big hubbub in the NFT space because a larger project, one of the top 10, came out with this crazy new technology called an NFC chip.
Azuki.
Yeah. And I saw that and I was like, well, their press is fantastic. And I know everyone's like, oh my God, invented new tech. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I mean, they made it in the shape of a bean, which is cool.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting here and I've got the shirt and you know, I mean, NFC technology has been out for a while, but even associating with apparel or an object is not new.
Right.
And so like, of course, when I saw that, I immediately thought of you guys. I almost emailed you, but I was like, nah, I don't want to.
We already know about it. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And we love it. So there, so to work backwards from kind of where we're going with it, we call this like the merch NFT feature and NFT to NFC. One of the things that we realized very quickly was the word NFT does not mean what most people think it means. Most people talk about NFTs and they're thinking about digital art or some sort of digital collectible that they're buying. And then really the NFT is just an on-chain piece of data that's used to authenticate it, you know, and prove provenance. And so from that standpoint, once we started learning about the real value of NFTs as a technology, we again saw it from our perspective being inside of this huge industry that's very archaic and has all kinds of room for disruption, from the standpoint of in a couple different ways. So if we can create unique tokens, NFTs, that can be associated with unique apparel items and can be associated with a unique identifier on that physical item, either a QR code or an NFC chip that gets sewn into the garment, there's so many powerful use cases for that just in our space alone, not even factoring in what you could do with other types of products that we don't necessarily manufacture, like luxury handbags, wine, bluefin tuna, all kinds of other, you know, luxury products. So what's interesting to me is a couple different use cases. The big one that I'm most excited about, which is not what Azuki is, you know, using this for, or a lot of people are thinking about. It's definitely not the sexy use case of it. But to me it is, it's like allowing these big licensors like Disney, like NFL, NBA to manage their royalties and IP in a way that is basically automated and hands-off and closed loop. And so if you've ever worked with any of these licensors or brands that have licenses with these licensors, the licensing agreements are like 1,000 pages long. It spells out every acceptable use, unacceptable use, acceptable supplier, unacceptable supplier, quality, and most importantly, royalties, right? So if I'm going to go if I'm going to start a brand, and I want to go get a Disney license for my brand, number one, I can't because I don't know the right people, right? So it's already a walled garden and they're not letting you in because you don't know the right people and the right people are already stretched too thin. Number two, if you actually get into that walled garden, you know, they're going to say something like, okay, here's a custom licensing agreement. We need, you know, 6 figures of guaranteed royalties per year. And then we're going to want 20% of retail of every product that you sell. But there's no way in the agreement doesn't actually enforce that. The agreement doesn't actually collect those royalties. They have people that are out there manually auditing, manually checking spreadsheets from factories every day. Like, it's completely open loop. So it is built on trust. That trust is heavily enforced by very, very
teams of lawyers,
legal documents and lawyers, right? Yeah. And so if we can have a beacon, right, that says when a product was made, when it was sold, when it was made, what factory it was produced in, that would already solve a huge problem around tracking royalties and, you know, IP within these big supply chains. So that's one really exciting B2B use case. B2B to C is going to be around things like proof of ownership, proof of authenticity. One that we're really excited about is proof of attendance, right? So being able to like use your garment as a ticket to an event, being able to use your garment as a mechanism to earn rewards from the brand. So think about, buying a jersey for, I'll use Kentucky basketball as an example. Like Kentucky basketball, let's say you're a grandfather that loves Kentucky basketball and it goes to every game, right?
Yeah.
I envision a world where that fan can buy a jersey that was created on demand in our factory. Yep. And has an NFC tag sewn into it that is doing all of this cool stuff with the blockchain in the background, but that person has no idea. So for them, they buy the jersey. We drop in a proof of authentication and a proof of ownership token into a custodial wallet that's hosted behind the scenes on, KentuckyBasketball.com or wherever they bought it. And then when they receive the product, oh, hey, scan me, right? And then it takes them back to their account, and then they can authenticate it in a cool way. They can tie their digital identity to it in a unique way that's all tied to this custodial wallet on the back end. Mm-hmm. And then they can wear it to games. And all of a sudden, maybe they're at a game and they're sitting there and they get a, SMS text message on their flip phone that says, hey, you just won a popcorn, or hey, you won a drink ticket or whatever.
Or even if it's as customer loyalty or XP, right?
Totally.
Like you've been to 25 different games. We know that here's the,
exactly.
XYZ, right? Yeah, this shirt's been in attendance for X number of games. You've gone to the next level of whatever that is. You win a free parking space, or you win a free popcorn or a beer or whatever.
Exactly. And the hard part of that equation, there's a lot of companies that are looking at, building NFC chips with higher levels of encryption or with additional sensors for things, like an AirTag. The AirTag that you can buy from Apple, it's an NFC tag that has a higher level of encryption, and it has other sensors that power things like GPS and all these other things. We don't think that people want GPS trackers on them, so we don't need that level of sophistication. But there's companies that are building within the NFC tech itself, building things like supporting a hardware wallet in the actual chip, having data that can be reported on chain through the chip, and making sure that the chip has enough encryption to do so. That's actually really important and really cool tech. The ability to generate tokens that can be associated with an NFC tag, that's also really important technology. And so we think the way that the developer at Azuki launched this, I actually, full disclosure, don't know that developer, and I haven't read the white paper. I will say that the Merch Proof's CTO, Drew, who, shout out to Drew. Drew knows a lot about this technology, and he was amazed at the white paper and how elegant it is and how simple it is. But the way we see it is that's one little part of the equation, right? The really hard part of the equation is, how do you get that chip in the right garment? How do you make sure that it's variable? How do you make sure that it's one of one? How do you associate that data to the unique garment at scale, right? So if I'm producing like 50,000 garments a day, how do I make sure that I have a process where the right NFC can be sewn into the right garment and be associated with the right thing
and checked and guaranteed and all that. Right.
Exactly. And so the reason why we feel pretty good about our kind of moat in the space is because of all of the things that we've built around the garment manufacturing and the printing and the variable data and graphic templates and stuff. And so we haven't put as much development into the merch NFT side of things. And I'm actually glad that we didn't, because what we've learned over the last few months is that there's all these super exciting infrastructure components that are being built at the same time, like especially now in Web3. I mean, we were at the LA Blockchain Summit a couple weeks ago, and it was like this, you would never know that there was a bear market happening and that FTX was like a dumpster fire, like setting off this, maybe a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
Better term, right? Where there's all these like ripple effects and like tertiary destruction, things from it. Because the vibe at that show and the vibe kind of on the inside of the space now is it's all builders. It's like people building cool stuff. And because we have this vision around how the tech can disrupt our industry, which is a $1 to $3 trillion slice of a $27 trillion global retail pie, we see it as this incredibly disruptive thing for that gives us a unique advantage in our industry. And then the builders of these infrastructural pieces, they see what we're doing and it's like magic. It's like, oh my gosh, that's the perfect use case for the thing that we've been building. And so where we're now that we've built like the really hard part, with some of the partnerships that we've made over the last couple months, it's actually accelerated our vision to be able to have a kind of like a Web3 native solution for both merch proof and merchandise. And so actually all of the commerce pieces that are e-commerce Web2 native are being rebuilt on our side to be de-commerce, decentralized e-commerce pieces that are on chain. The token gating piece, the inventory, the e-com inventory, the e-com checkout process, royalties, the store creation process, is all on chain and supports multiple different chains, so that any of our big customers can immediately start doing stuff with where to earn, tokenized wearables, all these other features that don't necessarily require you to have a digital NFT collection or, be selling tokens to your crypto tokens to your customers.
Right. And I think that's the big thing. Like I think you see that, and I don't know if it's necessarily because of the build / bear market. It's a bear markets or build markets anyway. But I think one of the things that I find fascinating is the more entrepreneurs that I talk to in the space, as we march through this bear market, everybody is not only is everybody continuing to build, which is wonderful to see, but people are beginning to take a more practical approach to onboarding. Meaning, like, I'll use us for an example. So, last year, and even this year, everything is like to buy our NFTs or to buy our products. It's all ETH. With that said, though, and we were talking about this in the green room, and this is maybe, I shouldn't, Melissa will kill me, but whatever. We're actively looking into either building our own custom custodial wallets so that we can accept fiat, or partnering with a company that, at least maybe even partnering with them at first, we can see how they built it and then build it ourselves or something, some kind of fiat integration, because of the limitations of where the blockchain is, right? Like there's so many advantages to it, but it's also still very early, and we, as we were talking before, like one of the challenges that we have is we want to do things like add to cart and upsells and downsells and cross sells, or, oh, wait, you like this item, you might like this item too. Well, in ETH or in using the chain, it's really hard, right? It's very, very difficult. And so we're looking at various ways to kind of say, okay, well, we're already in the future. We're already building for the future. How can we bridge the future to the present? Because at least for us, speaking for ourselves, one of our main initiatives going forward is also helping to bring in more people into Web3 space. So we're going to start doing, in 2023, we'll be doing a lot of education and a lot of bringing in people who have no idea what the space is about, and approaching them on their terms, and then bringing them in, and then bringing them into our project to, if nothing else, then as an example of what they can do in their own businesses. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with that. And I think, especially with something like merch proof or whether it's the garment technology itself that's inventive, or whether it's the NFC chip that you're adding into it that's inventive, like you're slowly. But I think it makes it so interesting, and what I can relate to with you guys is that, you guys have been here for a long time. You weren't here, you didn't just start yesterday, right? I know the size because we talked about it, and I remember, you're not working out of a garage. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
I remember it was like 100,000 square foot thing.
Yeah, well, we've got a couple factories. We have two factories in SoCal. We're opening a factory in northern Mexico, specifically around sewing.
Right.
And then we have a large development team in Brazil. We have a
Sewing.
huge
Wait. Cut and sew is cut and sew. I did hear something about cut and sew.
Yeah. Well, because so the other method of production that we have is dye sublimation for polyester garments. So that's a
Right.
whole nother rabbit
That's a
hole
whole
that we
other
can
bag.
go down. And we do that also in a quantity of one. So think like esports, anything from esports uniforms to athleisure leggings to Speedos to swim, lacrosse jerseys. Any polyester based garment, we can also produce those on demand as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's the fact that you guys have been here and you've been around, and coming from, I really do think, Alex, that there's a huge advantage for those of us who came from a more quote unquote traditional background in whatever field that we're in. For me, it was animation and comics, right? And then technology, because I was in startups for a long time.
Yeah.
And then same thing with you. It was apparel, but it was apparel startups, right? It was like it was like step one was take apparel, right? This thing that's been around forever, right? And then bring it into a new phase, which was Web 2.0, which was the startup, right? And then it's like once you have that and you've kind of cut your teeth on like e-commerce and how do you do this and all of those, quantities and dealing with customers and community and voting and all the crazy stuff that you have to figure out there. Now it's like, cool. How do we we've already solved all of that. So we went through the fire on that. So now how do we take that and start to bridge that to Web3? And there's a whole nother batch of challenges, but you've got that experience enough to be like the stuff that you're going to run into with Web3, like the old challenges are going to show up in new ways, and those won't affect you as hard as a founder, as an entrepreneur, because you've already dealt with them. Right. So that gives you the mind space. It gives you the mental ability to focus on the brand new problems that are Web3 specific or specific to your own business in this form. Whereas other competitors or other people who are trying to do the same thing, they kind of have to start from scratch. Like they really, it's a much harder road to go down because they've never faced any of those challenges before. Yeah. Right. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. It's very similar to the very early days of the internet, where most people's mind, when they hear the word internet at that time, was, oh, it's a scam. Oh, it's this nerdy thing that people are doing, this weird things that I don't understand. If people even understood it, they would think that maybe it's about people chatting on message boards or like, communicating information in this weird way. And so like that's the only thing that you can do with the internet. And then you have like the .com boom where, oh wow, we can have a .com version of everything, but then it wasn't quite ready. Like a lot of the infrastructure wasn't quite ready. And then then you had this big flushing out of all that, and then from those ashes you got Google and all these Amazon and all these unicorn companies using the technology in a different way. And then now you would never have like an internet conference or a World Wide Web conference, right? Like it's just a basic part of basic part of infrastructure for every industry now. And I think it's going to be the same thing with Web3. Like just in what you were showing me with your tech and like all the stuff that you're doing around comics and like removing a lot of the traditional bureaucracy and infrastructure and barriers that people would have to face to participate in something like that.
Yeah.
You have this unique perspective where you can see, I mean, just in the little pre-show thing that we were nerding out for a second, I immediately started thinking about all these cool ways of creating comics and like being able to like democratize access to like that whole thing and then collaborate in ways. And so like our part of it is, helping you connect with your fans and your customers in these really unique ways around physical products. But all these other people are going to have the same light bulb moments over the next 5 to 10 years. And what's going to happen is that, we'll look back on this moment 5 to 10 years from now, and this is going to be the time where all of the people started seeing it from these different perspectives with different collective experiences. That's going to change all these big slices of the $27 trillion retail pie, but then other even things that are not even connected to retail as well. And so that's what I'm really excited about, is that, now people are starting to see, well, wait, it's not just digital art and, selling $100,000 JPEGs, or, selling having ICO, initial coin offerings for things that don't really need a coin, or, doesn't really make sense.
We're already so close to having everything just be embedded in our daily and into daily use. I think the future was the future signal was given by Reddit with their drop, right?
Totally.
That was such an aha moment. I'm not a big Reddit fan, and I avoid it like the plague. And the reason is because, at least with NFTs, you're talking about an audience of millions of people, that literally hate NFTs,
Right.
like virulently despise NFTs. And so for whatever reason, limited beliefs in my opinion, but okay, fine. They just despise it. And I have to give so much credit to that team.
Totally.
That is so ballsy to say, hey, what do our customers, what do our users hate the most? Right? Oh, politics. Well, we can't sell politics. NFTs are the second thing that they hate the most. Cool. Let's go ahead and sell them NFTs. And it could have, I don't think people know, if that launch had not gone well, it could have destroyed.
Totally.
It could have eliminated Reddit. It could have eliminated Reddit. And instead, they just said, hey, we're launching digital collectible avatars tied to the blockchain, and you can own it. And then you mint them, and they're like, oh, you don't have a Reddit wallet, or Reddit vault. You don't have a Reddit vault. Well, don't worry, we're gonna make you a Reddit vault. Just push this button. Oh, you have a Reddit vault? Be sure to write down your password. And all of a sudden, they onboarded 3 million people into digital wallets, and all they had to do was not use the word. It just shows you how it's a cultural ignorance. That's all it is. People have associated the word NFT with some negative connotation, and so the minute you remove the word NFT and you add digital collectible or whatever, everyone's totally cool with it. Oh, I loved it. NFTs are dumb, but I love digital collectibles.
They used it as a tech to do something that was so perfect. It was so ripe for the tech, right? Because they already have avatars and all these digital versions of the avatar that cost different amounts of money, and they have the karma points and all this other stuff. So they had the whole thing was perfect for the tech. And then they just took that and then enhanced it and made it even better, and a better expression of the original thing. And I think that's going to happen time and time again. And then the people that on the flip side, because I think the reason why NFTs have such a bad connotation is because so many entities have made so much money off of best case things that the mass market doesn't really understand or recognize as valuable, or worst case total scammers, right? Just total bad actors. And so when you show it to them, that's why I think NBA Top Shot has done a great has another great example where everybody understands sports cards, and everybody understands I'm not a huge sports person, but I get sports cards and I understand why they're valuable to people. And the way that they did it with the custodial wallet, not having you have to know anything about NFTs or crypto to participate in it, that's the future. And that's where it's gonna find itself into every layer of everything. And the people that understand how that can be used to create value in a significant way for mass markets will be rewarded. The people that just want to ride the bandwagon and say, I've got the NFT version of whatever, or I'm now the next crypto coin that's going to moon, or the next piece of art that's going to moon, or whatever. Those are the ones that I would be careful with, because it's going to flip. It's turning into people building really cool stuff that's going to impact, every fabric of our society.
For sure. And KG says that's why we call them digital assets. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So Alex, man, this has been a fantastic conversation, dude. Where can we point people to merch proof merchandise?
Yeah. So
which one would you like us to point people to?
It's the same fundamental product. We created two different brands because we thought that the space was a little bit more different than it is. What we're realizing now is that it's all one thing, and the traditional brands all want to do cool stuff around token gating, and the NFT brands and Web3 brands all want to get into traditional products and Web2 experiences. So Merchandise is our main company. Merch Proof is our kind of NFT Web3 subsidiary. Currently, there is no way to work with us if you're not a brand that we're building a store for. That's going to change very quickly. This week, there is on the Merch Proof side, there's what we're calling direct to collector. There's a direct to collector solution for collectors of the top 25 blue chip NFT collections. We'll be able to create not a million products under the sun, but 3 very, very high quality products. Think like the highest quality streetwear hoodie, the highest quality streetwear crew neck, the highest quality streetwear tee, with a few different templates, with a few different metadata options, with a really cool unboxing experience. That's going to continue to expand with more products, more templates, more collaborations. So look for that to kind of be rolled out pretty aggressively over the next few months. And then very quickly, hopefully by the end of the year, anybody that wants to buy something, a custom apparel product from us, whether it's just one shirt to a full, custom B2B experience, will be able to work with us somehow. But yeah, we're merchproof.com, merchproof on Twitter. I'm Cotton Futures on Twitter. I've gotten a lot more active on there since we got into Web3, so that's been fun.
Because one must.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's a fun, kind of real time way to engage in the community. Discord is one where I'm still trying. To me, it feels like it's very video gamey to me. But we are getting our Discord set up, and we have a team that loves Discord, and I will be active in there. So we'll be on Discord soon, but Twitter, website, and if you ever want to ask me something, you can DM me on Twitter.
Awesome.
I'm usually pretty active on there.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you again. Hang there for just a second. We'll pop in the ring in a second. Everybody else, merchproof.com. You heard it here first. I love their quality. I've got to be fully transparent. After meeting Alex and meeting his partners and looking at the actual product, which I have in my hands, it's fantastic. They're great guys. I can't wait to work with them. Adult Fantasy certainly will. So, awesome. Guys, definitely check it out. Keep your eye on it, and do yourself a favor. If you're in a project, push them to Merch Proof, man. Let's get them going, because it's fantastic stuff, and it's a good team, 100% legit. You got to support legit projects for sure, and legit companies. So, Alex, thank you again.
Thank you, Todd. This was great.
Absolutely. Everybody at home, thank you. Check us out on Discord. Check us all out on Twitter, Adult Fantasy NFT. Make sure you have the NFT in there. I am not responsible if you just look up Adult Fantasy. Same thing as whatever.
Right. You should look up Adult Fantasy DTF and see what happens.
Let's do. I sense a collaboration. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, we will see about that. Anyway, definitely check us out on Discord, adultfantasy.io. Remember to check us out this weekend. We've got that comic drop, that Origin comic drop. And be sure to do us a favor and subscribe, follow, whether you're hearing this podcast, wherever you're listening to your podcast, or through YouTube. We appreciate you so much. And with that, we will see you next time on Evening Alpha. Until then, take care.